another live stream with the Bearded Mystic, and I'll be doing another non-duality live reaction, but not so much to somebody who is a complete non-dual person, but when they started off back in uh well, the first time I saw him was probably in 2011. He was somebody that at least was part of the spiritual community, somewhat in the non-dual circles. He was even interviewed, I think, on Buddha at the gas pump. So he was pretty, he had quite a bit of a following. Come 2016, the world changes a lot. Politically, we change. There's a lot of changes that happen culturally, and then 2020 kind of speeds up that change. So I'll be looking at what he says about I changed my mind about God, and here's why. I think JP, Waking with JP Sears, I believe he was atheist. And so I would be very interested to know his reasons into believing in a God. I'll then share my personal views afterwards. And by the way, I was a YouTube creator at that time in 2010 when JP Sears became quite popular with his kind of satirical videos on New Age spirituality. So, like I said, this is going to be quite interesting. It's my first video where I'm looking at something that is more in the cultural sphere. So, I will like to see. What he says. Hi, Eric. So, love, I believe veg life leads to spiritual life. Atheist, then veggie, then JP, got BG. Okay, if that's what his journey was, I'm not too sure. I kind of stopped listening to him. Actually, I never found him funny. Maybe one or two videos I did find funny back in the day, uh, but yeah, ever since he's gone on this uh, change in, well, I don't know if he always believed in this stuff, but when he changed his content, a bit like Russell Brand, is how I view him. So yeah, let's see how he views God. I mean, I'm open to hearing what he's got to say. And even though, like I said, I may disagree with the way he's done things, I may disagree with some of his views, especially about COVID and stuff, but I think I should view this video more so with an open mind rather than a view about what I think. So let's get to it. In the video description, I am going to put those timestamps so people know when I started. So let's get down to watching our good friend JP Sears.
I changed my mind about God. I was wrong. So accordingly, in this video, I want to share with you what I used to believe, what I believe now, and what made me change my mind along the way. And also, very importantly, I want to share with you a few thoughts of mine that I have that will help us bring more God not only into our lives, but also the world around us, which seems like it needs a lot more God right now. Because
This is where I have a few issues. What makes you think that we need more God in this world? In fact, I would even turn around and say, I think the fact that there's been more God in the world is what has caused a lot of harm in this world, a lot of violence, a lot of damage. And, for example, for me being from the uh, region in India, with the whole colonialism, the idea of God has actually probably brought more damage than actual freedom. Or so I think. Well, like I said, it's a very interesting view of his. But let's see.
I don't know about you, but living in a world where Satan reigns and you and I and our families.
Satan reigns? Where's your evidence for this? Like, literally, where is your evidence? This is the biggest issue that I have, is when someone says Satan reigns, what does that actually mean? The reason why I say this is because he's come out with that statement without having you go through that journey of understanding why he says Satan reigns. That's the biggest concern I have with someone like this, or a statement like that. I mean, I certainly don't think Satan is reigning in my world because I don't think it exists. So, um, you know,
have to suffer the consequences, and you and I and our families have to suffer the consequences doesn't really feel appealing to me. And also, quick disclaimer,
okay.
this video is not intended to be a comedy video. And if that offends you, pray about it. So what I
I mean, like, that's just cringe in itself, but like, pray about it, bruh. And again, he says it's not a comedy, but I think his, even from what I've viewed of some of his comedy, because I do look at the Guru's pods, and I listen to Conspirituality, and they have done great takedowns of him. And I think his line between comedy and real life is rather thin. In fact, very thin. Let's go back a bit again.
pray about it. So what I used to think about God that I now say, yeah, I was wrong about. I used to have a lot of judgment about religion and Christianity, thinking like, it's not bad, but it's like, dude, that's so outdated and like, get with it. Why are you religious when you could be spiritual? And along with that, I became very inundated in the spiritual movement. So like spirituality, not religion, like the evolved thinkers are spiritual, not religious. They're also evolved enough to.
I will actually disagree here. I don't think there's anything wrong with someone being religious, but I do understand what he's saying. And there was this movement of, well, if I'm spiritual, I'm kind of a bit edgy. So I do get where he's coming from. And there was this whole movement where people didn't want to associate with the religion. And I think this is more to do with Christianity than, say, Hinduism or Sikhism or Buddhism. But again, what does he mean by spirituality? Like, what is this? Like, when people say spirituality, they think yoga or they think meditation. So is this mindfulness meditation? Is this meditation in terms of meditating on Om? What are you talking about? So when you say spirituality and you give a comment like that, just a statement like this, there are issues because you need to define what you mean by spirituality. Maybe he's going to go into that, but he hasn't explained Satan yet. Um, and what do we mean by religion? Now, the reason why a lot of people don't associate with religion is because they don't associate with the rules, regulations, the rituals, the dogma, the doctrines of religion. They can't relate to it. They can't understand it. It's very vague. It cannot be explained. When they want it explained, the heads, like the priests, they cannot give adequate explanations. So if that's your view of religion, I get it. If you view a religion in a label, like, oh, I'm a Hindu or I'm a Christian, I'm a Buddhist, yeah, I think you can say you're spiritual because you don't want to label yourself in that sense, because the label implies something. So what does it imply? It implies that you belong to that place. Uh, so again, I would turn around and say, I don't really know. I hope he explains what he means. By the way, I'm watching this for the first time, so I'm reacting to it. I'm reacting to it, and I'm responding to it at the same time. But nice to see you, Eric. Thank you for being on here.
Spirituality, not religion. Like the evolved thinkers are spiritual, not religious. They're also evolved enough to always have to tell you that they're spiritual, not religious.
Uh, Again, any real evolved person never tells you that they are spiritual. I don't have to express this to anybody. I don't have to say I'm evolved. I don't really care about those things. Those are real. Those are labels. You see, that's the funny thing about people who claim that they are spiritual or they're even religious. Oh yeah, we don't want to be labeled anything because we are God's children, or we are one with God, or we're in oneness, and there's all that. So to be fair, even if you call yourself an evolved being, that's still a label. Me calling myself bearded mystic is a label, So I I disagree with him on that point. I think I think he's describing himself personally. Is the way he used to view himself. And maybe he's right in that sense, but he's kind of brushed anyone that says they're spiritual and not religious under the same kind of framework, which again shows ignorance and not relatively intelligence. It doesn't show that. Uh, but you see, the appeal is this: whatever he's saying, if you're in with him and you've been following him, he makes complete sense. I mean, to be fair, I would totally understand why someone would think, "Oh yeah, JP, you're doing amazing." But for me, I think he's not speaking any sense at all. That's that's not me talking from an evolved sense. That's just me talking from common sense. I'm actually a common person watching this. I don't have any special knowledge or anything, but what he's just said is completely ridiculous. Hey, Dimitri G, how are you doing? Nice to see you. Went a little from this. I wouldn't like to say a little, yeah, you know, but alas, maybe there's another 24 minutes. He may explain himself. Yeah, he may explain himself. Let's give it to him. JP, go on.
Like the evolved thinkers are spiritual, not religious. They're also evolved enough to always have to tell you that they're spiritual, not religious. That was me. And while I was in there,
Okay,
I
good.
will honestly say I got a lot of benefit from spiritual teachings, like different teachers, different books, different philosophies. I got a lot of benefit from that.
Good. It's nice to see that he's a little humble there, and I'm glad that he said it's him, that he thought that way. But see, this is the thing about language. Although he's talking about himself, he is talking about a larger thing at play. So as much as he says that was me, he is saying there's a load of people that actually believe this. So if you now come across anyone, so anyone that follows him um, or is in a or is in a place in life where they are kind of, they've gone through a lot, especially over the past few years, and intellectually they have you kind of lost that discernment. Whatever he's saying, it's going to be appealing for them, and they're going to say, oh, anyone that now I see says they're spiritual, oh, they must be like what he's just described. There must be egomaniacs that claim that they're evolved beings, because that's certainly what he's implying. And even though he doesn't say it, he's saying that. This is a thing about the and I think, and I want to say, he's smart enough to know what he's saying. I mean, I'm giving him full credit that I think he's smart enough to know what he's saying. Same with Russell Brand. I think they're smart enough to know what they're saying. But we have to understand that there is something not right with what they're saying either. And we have to think about it. We have to discern it, and we have to be honest in our inquiry into what they're saying. But like I said, I think he is smart enough to know what he's doing. JP's language is super loose for sure in the intro. Yeah. So far, it's been super loose. I'm hoping it's going to change. So, yeah, JP seems like a gatekeeper in that way for sure. Yeah, he pretty much is. Russell's got the key to the tube for sure. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you know, their content works because it comes from. So one thing that Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that I forgot my train of thought. Yeah, it was a really interesting insight, but obviously I've forgotten it. But anyway, let's carry on. Some people who do the spiritual, not religious thing end up being cultural appropriators and Hinduphobes. Yes. Okay, this is what I was also going to lead on to. I do find that that is the case with him because he adopted some things from Hinduism and Buddhism. And I think they overinflated it and meaning westernized it, commodified it, and they continue to commodify it, by the way. I don't think he has changed the commodification. All that he's doing now is commodifying God. He's asking you in the very description in this video to buy his t-shirt that he's got on right now. That's commodifying God. He's doing the same thing that he did before. No change. You look at someone by what they are doing. Uh, be honest and say you're commodifying. So he's obviously still doing the commodifying. It's just changed its track. It also gives them license to take what jives with their ego and to toss out the rest. It can be a spiritual dead end. Yes, Dimitriji, absolutely sure. That's exactly what's happened. When you realize that there's a philosophy that's telling you you're absolutely wrong right now, you're gonna have to put it to the side. And I think that's what a lot of people in the yoga community, which kind of he was part of the whole new age thing, I think they all found out eventually, actually quite smartly by even the Indian Prime Minister Modi, that yeah, this thing called COVID is real. You take the vaccine, you look at, you do the public health things. Yeah, those are the little things that probably kind of brought Hinduism back into this whole thing of we believe in science. We are not against public health advice. So that's where I think there was a huge change. And anyone that was coming up with this westernized version of body sovereignty was being questioned, and not being questioned from a practical point of view, but from a philosophical point of view, which is a lot more intense actually than anything else. So yeah, bearded. Yeah, I was saying Krishna said something about the keys to the tube. I think it was to do with the whole that because in the Bhagavad Gita it does talk about how people can be dishonest and they can use things to their advantage. And it was going to be based on that, but I totally forgot what my point was. I actually had a verse in my head. Um, uh, everything you post on Facebook can be purchased. Yeah, this is it. This is it. So anyway, let's carry on. And then when I pause again, I look at the comments. I love reading the comments. So do comment and do like this video as well, so other people get to see it on YouTube, and subscribe if you haven't so far. So yeah, let's carry on with Mr. Got God.
Books, different philosophies. I got a lot of benefit from that. But when I look back, I can see I was excluding some amazing traditional Christian values, beliefs of God, and ways of connecting with God that I now really value.
Okay, this is the point I wanted to come across. And I was hoping he would say this, and he did. He never left being a Christian. That's my point of view. That's my opinion. I'm not saying it's a fact, but I don't think he ever left Christianity. I don't think he ever stopped believing in God. Everything that he was doing was a ploy to get more views, more money. So, for example, now I'm remembering what I was going to say earlier, that like people like Russell and JP, they have gone with what the algorithm wants them to do. They're in fact more slaves to the algorithm than, say, any other non-dual teacher out there, because they don't really care about the algorithm, because remember, the algorithm doesn't exist. But anyway, um, but um, but what it is, these people don't actually change their beliefs. So he may have read all those books, read all that philosophy, but he didn't discern about it. Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says we need to discern between what is real and unreal. And basically, it is a very practical teaching, meaning that if you see anything in nature that changes, it's unreal. And that witness consciousness that is watching everything is real. That's the basic level of spirit. That's spirituality, by the way, from where all religion has arisen from. Meaning religion, meaning this in the formal structure. But here, I don't think he ever left Christianity. I think he just jumped on the bandwagon of what would get him a quick buck. And again, do I think that's wrong of him? That's not for me to judge. He's not breaking any laws, so all he's doing is playing the field. So yeah, the apparent algorithm. Yeah. So yeah, also the Christianity thing is a way to ingratiate himself even more with the MAGA folks. Yes, these people are completely on the QAnon bandwagon, whether they explicitly say it or not. Just take a look at their comments on their videos, and you will see what political spectrum, or not even political spectrum, but spectrum of society that is, kind of supporting their content. And it tells you that if they're continuing, so this is the thing, he's giving content which his new audience wants. So really, his God is just the audience. His God is not some God out there. It's literally doing whatever the algorithm, whatever his comments, whatever the likes he can get. So, hey, Martin, ego is the way. It is the way. And as you see, in fact, if I'm not wrong, and Martin, maybe you can confirm this for me, but he was a complete non-dualist, if I remember correctly. He didn't take the same route as Benjamin Smythe, but he was I'm sure he was very non-dual. I wish that our friend from Buddha at the gas pump, Rick Archer, I wish that he kept the interview, because it's always a good thing to check history to see where these people were. But yeah, anyway, let's get back to Mr. Got God.
Connecting with God that I now really value. But out of what I would call spiritual arrogance, I was excluding them, just judging them to be, oh, that's old, outdated stuff. And like, nah, y'all need to get spiritual like me.
This is the problem. He had a lack of discernment. Who says that spirituality is about getting rid of the old? That's not spirituality. In fact, the whole point of spirituality, the essence of it, is to say, well, that which was ancient seems to be applicable today, and we are abiding with it. So I don't really understand what he's on about. When people say they're spiritual and they don't believe in a God, the reason for that is because of the image that people have created out of God is what they're condemning, or what they are having an issue with, what they find challenging. It has nothing to do with ancient beliefs. So I think, again, that shows me his arrogance, that he still can't see that he has the wrong understanding of spirituality. But two, his ignorance is actually quite alarming. Even at this point, he hasn't even probably got deeper into the stuff that he's trying to say. But this is actually quite. He's very ignorant. I'm quite surprised, or maybe I shouldn't be surprised. JP's looking kind of ghoulish in this video too. Yeah, it's spiritual egoality. Yeah, it is. Um, I like that spiritual egoality. Yeah, he's looked a lot more aged in more recent years, and to be honest, whatever steroids he's on, or whatever supplements he's on, sorry, not steroids, whatever supplements he's on, he needs to check them out because, I think something's not right. The one that thinks he's going to get somewhere is the one that stands in the way. Wow. Yeah, I like that, Martin. I like that. That's very true. I'm going to put that up. That's really nice.
That I now really value. But out of what I would call spiritual arrogance, I was excluding them, just judging them to be, oh, that's old, outdated stuff. And like, nah, y'all need to get spiritual like me. And with that, I didn't believe in the immense power of prayer. I used to think, well, prayer's probably a good thing. It'll maybe give you a more positive mood, a more positive outlook. But I didn't truly believe in the power of prayer, where people are directly asking God for God's support and then receiving that support from God. Yeah, I didn't really believe that it actually happened.
Oh, so this has actually happened. So I'm assuming that he's going to talk about how it actually happens. But another thing that I want to mention, again, I think he shows more of his lack of knowledge than anything. One, prayer is actually your true self communicating with your true self. You think there's a difference. You think there is a God out there helping you, but you're praying to yourself in an indirect way. In fact, it's all in your mind. Not saying that's a bad thing. I'm actually saying that can be quite beneficial, actually, that you're praying to a God that's really within you. You've created this image in your brain that there's a God that's going to listen to you, and that in turn actually inspires you. I can actually see that there's benefit to that. But yeah, but I think he's talking about something else though. This prayer thing is something else. And I think my friend is going to explain it so well here for us.
And in a minute, I'll get to directly telling you what my beliefs about God
Please,
now
please
are.
do.
But first, what changed me? What happened? What I see that changed my mind? Well, one observation I've had over the past 3 years, especially, was hashtag pandemic.
Oh, he didn't take time to get there. He didn't take time. I was hoping he wouldn't. But this is the telltale sign. This is everything you need to know about the guy. The moment he says pandemic is the moment you know he's a complete and utter nonsensical fool. I want to be nice with my words, but I mean, this tells you one, the audience that he's pandering to, and two, like the way he says the 3 years changed him. Surely it's I'm trying to understand what the last 3 years makes you want to believe in God unless you faced a difficult time. If you believe that this whole thing was planned and there's you didn't really go through suffering. The ones that actually went through suffering, who lost people, who actually lost their loved ones, uh, I will never forget. And as much as I may disagree with Biden's some of his policies, especially of recent, But I would still remember when he said this I think it was on the debate, but he said like, if you're at home and you're sitting at the table and there's an empty chair because of the result of the policies that the previous president did, that was, I think, an image that I think we could all relate to, whether you lost someone in the during COVID or not. But we all know what it's like to have someone die in our family, and for me, that showed compassion. But when you say to me that this is all a pandemic, um, I have issues because you have no base for what you're saying. And to be honest, YouTube should have put this video down because of that. Um, so yeah, Advaita is rashless, Bhakti is rashful. Vikramji, you're getting better with your you're adopting the language quite well. But it's good to see you. Yeah, and thank you for appreciating the beard. It's a lot grayer than it was the last time I was on. But yeah, let's get back to him. But yeah, so now we know where he's coming from, and the audience that he's going for is the conservative white Americans, or actually, I'll just say the conservative white folk, or just conservative people in general, people who are skeptical of anything that speaks of experts. So that's the people that he's pandering to. In my opinion, follow the experts. There's a reason why they are experts. They have done proper studies. They have gathered a lot of knowledge, not some person who just puts on a video up on YouTube and thinks they are now a professor. So yeah, ridiculous stuff.
One observation I've had over the past 3 years, especially, was hashtag pandemic. Over the past 3 years, I've found myself accidentally getting more Christian.
Just before he goes into hashtag stupid, also, and then he noticed himself getting more Christian. Okay, look, language is everything. He says he watched himself get more Christian. That means he never left his religion. He was never spiritual, as he claimed in the beginning of the video. Language tells you everything. So he's now become more Christian, okay, as time has progressed. Nothing wrong with being Christian, by the way. Nothing wrong. I like Pope Francis.
Pandemic. Over the past 3 years, I've found myself accidentally getting more Christian. Like without even intentionally trying, like setting out on a mission, like, hey, I want to become more Christian. It's just been effortlessly happening for me.
Wow.
Now, I don't think I'm unique there because I've seen a lot of people and I've heard a lot of people telling me similar stories. So I asked the
Similar stories. The similar stories are this. Most people that were in this new age yoga center type of mentality, yoga pants, yoga leggings, whatever, the crowd that he appealed to be fair, and who he spoke to, they fundamentally never left Christianity. And this has been the argument that a lot of us Hindus have had when people have, basically, as Dimitri G was saying, when people have culturally appropriated a lot of the Hindu, Sikh, and Buddhist practices. So when he's having these conversations, he's been having conversations in an echo chamber. He's not left that crowd. It's the same crowd he was with before. The only thing is, he's now appealing to a different section of the crowd that has been added on from his crazy views on what really is happening, what he thinks is not happening but is happening. So yeah, yeah, accidentally more Christian. It is the best panda ever. Yeah, so I believe that JP's videos and Russell's videos don't get flagged is because they are co-intel working for psyops. I don't really know what psyops is, but I don't think there is a relationship with them and YouTube. They have a very fragile relationship with YouTube, from what I gathered. Hence, I think Brand even left to go to Rumble. So uh, I think right now it's a good source of income for them. And to be honest, YouTube, as it's continuously expanding, I don't know if they have the time to look at that. And it's, but yeah, I mean, but you could be right. I mean, who knows? Maybe they like having views. So yeah, right. Let's look at Mr. Accidental, more Christian.
stories. So I asked the question, why are people getting more Christian without even trying? Here's what I believe to be true about that. The presence of evil and Satan that evil emanates from has never been more obvious, at least in my lifetime. The past,
at least in his lifetime, because his lifetime is obviously everything. You know, that's where we all define our lives based on JP's timeline of events. Anything more egoic than that? But anyway, what's we are actually living in. Yes, I'm not saying that today's times are the best, but it's the best it's ever been in history. You do not have to worry about getting eaten by a beast because you don't have a proper home. My man is in a nice studio. He's probably got, you know, he's probably got a nice studio. I know he's married. He's got everything going for him. He even got the PPP loan forgiveness. You know, even though he believes it's all the pandemic was planned, he benefited from it. So to be honest, is there more evil going around, or are you noticing there's more evil within you but you're projecting it to the world? So what I mean by evil, meaning things that are causing you more harm internally or psychologically. One should contemplate upon that. I tripped and found suddenly I was semi-gay, semi-straight, somewhat Muslim, slightly Jewish, Christianity, Buddhist. Wow, that's quite a journey, Dimitri G, if someone claims that.
evil and Satan that evil emanates from has never been more obvious, at least in my lifetime. The past 3 years, evil isn't hiding anymore. It's coming at us through authoritarianism, movements.
Authoritarianism. He's the one that was okay with January 6th, I believe. Talk about people who are for tyranny, it's him. This is what I mean. Like they do not have mirrors because mirrors reflect. They are not looking in the mirror. And yeah, I disagree with him that there's more evil in the past 3 years. I don't feel that. I think things have come to the surface that was always there. It's not that it's grown. I think it was always there and we're now seeing it for what it is. For example, if you were a racist before, it was not cool for you to say so. Now, because of a particular person who could be arrested soon, he made it okay. Things like Brexit made it okay for you to voice your racism. So that these things have not grown. They've been there under the surface, brewing for a long time, and now we see it. So I tend to disagree with him on that, to be fair. But yeah, the past 3 years, we've also seen a lot of humanity and we've seen a lot of good things too. Um, I wouldn't turn around and say it's been completely more evil, but I guess you see the world as you see yourself. So, I see the world as Brahman. Maybe that's why I see. Oh, I must be seeing Brahman within me too. That's the way. That's the way to see it.
Movements, people, groups, companies, governments trying to invade our minds,
Yes.
invade our God given free will.
Yeah.
So, as that's become more obvious, I think there's a natural polarity that happens. If you're not someone who's willing to do the devil's bidding, if you're not someone who's willing to propagate evil, then there's a natural occurrence that happens when you're in the presence of evil. You polarize to the other extreme. Like you may not even be consciously aware of it, but the presence of evil makes you lean away. And then, therefore, what direction are you leaning towards? That would be the direction of God.
Yeah. Okay. Where did he make this leap from? I'm trying to understand. How has he taken that leap? Like, I don't really get it. I don't know how that makes any sense at all. Um, if anyone can make sense of that, do tell me. I'm certainly struggling.
Are you leaning towards? That would be the direction of God. Certainly the opposite of evil, the opposite of Satan. So I think that's seeing the presence of evil. That's why I've just accidentally been getting more Christian, why so many other people are. Because right now, I think the evil that's in this world is doing a great service of driving a lot of people to find God in ways that they previously hadn't.
Okay. I wonder if the Pope would agree with what he's saying. But I don't understand how, if there's more evil, you go more towards God. Surely, if there's more evil, it must attract you more towards that so-called evilness. Um, so I don't really get it, because I think, well, he's trying to say one thing, but he's meaning another, which is why I don't really understand what he's trying to say. Um, I don't understand why, if you think there's more evil, it turns you to God more. Um, Something to think about.
And also, specifically, we could say, hey, there is an attempt to bring communism all over the world, certainly in the United States.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Where? My friend, may I educate you about this great Christian that I knew? Well, he wasn't Christian, but he was. He's the one that founded your religion that you claim you effortlessly went into. Um, he believed in sharing wealth with everyone. He believed there shouldn't be any poor people. He believed in equality. He was pretty much loving everybody, regardless of who they were in society. And let me think, who was that person? Oh, Jesus. Like, bro, you obviously have not read the Bible. And, if there's anyone that's, I mean, in my opinion, Jesus was someone that was probably very close to what communism kind of strives for. And there's a reason for that. It's because when you are actually in tune with this pure consciousness, you do feel more love for people, you do feel more empathy, and you do not like to see social injustices. So I'm failing to see your point here, man. I'm really struggling because the Christian you're talking about, I don't know what type of Christianity that is. I only know the Christianity that Jesus told, and he was definitely. If he looked at America today, America's not getting more communism; it's going the opposite way. Thanks to the person that you probably would vote for. Um, but you could possibly join him in jail.
There is an attempt to bring communism all over the world, certainly in the United States. We don't call it that, but it is that. And it's happening all over the world. And
we don't call it that, but it is that, and it's happening all over the world. Please tell me which country has where's communism occurred in the past 3 years. Please tell me a country that's suddenly gone from capitalism to communism. This is all made up in his head. There's no facts to what he's saying. There's no evidence. Where's his evidence for all this? In fact, I think the world has got more greedy and more polarized, which he also mentioned before. So again, he's contradicting himself. Within 5 minutes, he's contradicted himself completely. I've had a question. What do you think? How long ago Ramayan happened with it? To be honest, it doesn't matter when it happened. What's more important is how much can you learn from Sri Ramji's life, and I would say read Yog Vashisht, and that's more important. That's where we should focus. Whether something happened historically, it doesn't really matter. That's the difference between the Indian way of thinking and I think the Western historical way of thinking.
in the United States, we don't call it that, but it is that. And it's happening all over the world. And there's a reason why communists have their number one objective to disconnect people from God, where they ban religions. And of course, right now it's more like discouraging it, shaming it.
Do I want to tell him that the president of the United States right now is a Roman Catholic? He's not shameful about it. He's very proud of it. The president of the prime minister of India is very proud Hindu. Whether I agree with his pride of it or not is something else. Maybe I'm a communist. We have the prime minister of the UK. He's Hindu, very proud of it. I don't think there is this shame. In fact, I would say in more recent times, I've been more comfortable in saying that I'm Hindu. So I disagree with him. And for example, if he's saying that, yes, I understand that in communism, they do talk about religion being the opioid of the masses, but it's a lot deeper of a statement than what he's claiming it to be. That shows also his shallowness of understanding. But anyway, let's continue.
But with full-on communism, they ban religion. Why is that? Because they don't want people having faith in a real higher power. So if you can get people to disconnect from God, if you get people to disconnect from the teachings of God and the ways of God, the belief in God, then those communists get to be your higher power. And honestly, they make a crappy higher power. They don't even...
Again, what he's saying is a partial truth. I would agree with him on some sense, but let's take a few steps back. I do agree with the point that if you take God away from people without a proper alternative, meaning an alternative that is changeless, then yes, you make people believe in a certain authoritarian figure, or a politician will be a higher power, and you basically follow that person, and you view them and that may not be sufficient for society. So I do agree with him, but I don't think even if you took God away, it doesn't make you think that you have to view someone else as a higher power. You could actually just say there is no higher power, full stop, and just say, well, actually, the fact that I'm aware of this moment is no higher power, it's just awareness. It's neither lower nor higher. So you can even go with that. So you don't necessarily have to. So I again disagree with his conclusion. But I see his point that for a lot of people who do not have a strong discernment, they will probably go on to the next best thing, which would probably be, celebrities or someone.
Even make good fertilizer. That's
Well,
not a good substitute for God. But for people who want to control you, which is what evil is, anytime someone tries to control you in a way that's not in your best interest, that's what I call
again, I want you to listen to the words. Anything that controls you that's not in your best interest. Who are you to say whether something is in one's best interest or not? Two, aren't you trying to control us by saying that you've changed your mind about God and everyone should really believe in God? Why else would you make this video? It's not for self-expression. You're kind of telling people that this is the best way, and you're controlling your audience in that way. I'm just, I think that's what you're doing.
evil. So for the force of evil that is communism wanting to control you, they realize people who have a faith in a real higher power, God, they're not controllable. So we have to become their higher power. We need them to depend on us, not depending on their faith in God, but that we need them to depend on us, need us, be obedient to us, or else communism just doesn't work. And even
I don't think he really knows what communism is, first of all. Two, what he's talking about is like a dystopian world, which we were very close to thanks to the person that you supported, and Mr. Sears. And the other thing, I just realized how unhinged he is. Like, the fact that people watch this video and think that what he's speaking is truth or whatever is pretty scary. I'm quite worried if society is going that way or continues to go down that way.
even when that happens, it still doesn't work. But nonetheless, now there's a lot I don't know, but one thing I be obedient to us, or else communism just doesn't work. And even when that happens, it still doesn't work. But nonetheless.
So if communism doesn't work, why are you worried about it? And, if you claim that God is the higher power and God has given everyone free will, these were his words. Well, it's our free will to want communism. So who are you to say it's evil? What if you're saying not wanting communism is evil? What if that's evil? Like, again, what you're saying has no strong base or foundation. And right now, everything that he's spoken about so far in the past 6 minutes has nothing to do with spirituality or religion. He's just been talking about communism and going on to that point. So just want us to note that so far, he's not talked about spiritual beliefs or religious beliefs. Closest he's got to is prayer. That's it. But to be honest, anyone can say that one-liner about prayer.
Happens, it still doesn't work. But nonetheless. Now there's a lot I don't know, but one thing I do know is when you have faith in God, you are not controllable. You're not. The fear-mongering, the fear of death that ultimately all fear-mongering points to, like, hey, the climate's changing, the climate's gonna kill you. Hey, look at this disease, look at the death toll on the bottom of CNN. All that fear-mongering really preys on the...
Oh, whoa. Before I even go further, the fact that you say that, okay, but aren't you now creating fear by saying they're trying to bring communism? Oh, the devil's here. Isn't that all fear-based? Like, you're not even seeing. This is what I mean. He's not seeing his own kind of fallacy of argument and of discussion. It's completely flawed.
Hey, look at this disease. Look at the death toll on the bottom of CNN. All that fear mongering really preys on the fear of death that people have. But here's the deal. When you believe in God, you also therefore believe in the afterlife. You believe in heaven. So you don't really fear death the way you fear death if you believe there is no God. Why? Because
I don't believe in a God, and I don't fear death. I'm not scared. I just enter into this. Consciousness doesn't die anyway, so there's nothing that is dying. So not really understanding what he's on about. He's just another colonized Westerner. I'm going to put this. Who is still caught up in Abrahamic dualistic thinking. Absolutely agree. By the way, even most non-religious people are dualistic in the Abrahamic tradition. Yes, that's very true. You know, the whole dualism is this, that they believe there's no separate God, or they still believe there's a separation. They haven't gone to the oneness. So yeah, I do agree with you on that. Which is the fastest path according to you, Advaita, Tantra, or Bhakti? Vikramji, in my opinion, Advaita and Bhakti. So Tantra, to be honest, includes Bhakti and Advaita. I think Advaita includes both of them, but Advaita and Bhakti, you need them side by side. You can't be completely Advaita without Bhakti. Then it's completely. It doesn't have the same potency. It's not as it's not so rich and full. And if you have Bhakti without Advaita, then then what you have is blind faith, blind belief. So for me, you need either you follow the tantric tradition, or and that's complete in itself, or you follow Advaita with Bhakti, or Bhakti with Advaita. You can't have they're not with they're not without each other. Thank you, Vikramji. You're adding a bit of a non-duality to this rather dualistic man, Mr. Fear mongering. I mean, fear dispelling. Sorry.
the way you fear death if you believe there is no God. Why? Because you're like, well, okay, if I die, which I don't want to, but if I do, okay, I'm in heaven. That's actually beautiful. So the brave, bold freedom statement.
Like, like how is that even like kind of cool to even say? Again, does it actually change you psychologically? I don't think so, but he's claiming so. So, which I don't believe for a second. Whatever he's saying, I don't believe it.
Okay, I'm in heaven. That's actually beautiful. So the brave, bold freedom statement of it's better to die on your feet than live on your knees becomes something that people of faith will live by. That's why communists, globalists, anyone who wants to control you purposely tries to disconnect you from God, because God's way is freedom. Evil constricts, God frees. God gives us free will. That's our expression of freedom. That's God's way.
But if God gives you freedom, then that's not free will. Because that freedom is given. It's not done out of your own free will. You see the fallacy in what he's saying? You see how like it doesn't stand up? But yeah, nothing. Again, he hasn't really said anything great. It's a lot like those pseudo non-dualists.
Communists don't like that. Globalists don't like that because God's way makes you uncontrollable to them.
No, not really.
And we can see that tyrannical authoritarians attempt to disconnect people from their faith in God. It's certainly at play now. Now, statistically, 50 years ago, 98% of Americans believed in God.
Where's his study? He's not noted it down. He didn't. He just said in 1950 whatever.
Today, statistically, just 81% of Americans believe in
Oh, so American society is evolving. Oh, I'm actually glad.
God. And then from a political perspective, it's actually interesting to see that just 64% of Democrats believe in God, while 92% of Republicans believe in God.
Yeah, well, that probably is telling you something. You probably wouldn't. This for me is selling more on the line of why one should be a Democrat than a Republican. But yeah.
And of course, right now, as it stands,
Oh yeah.
the evil, the satanic ways, the communist ways tend to be much more abundant on the Democrat side. So it's not too surprising that just 62% of Democrats believe in God.
Let me just again remind you all, the President of the United States is Christian. Just want us to remember that. And he's a Democrat. A centrist Democrat, by the way. So he's not part of the liberal side of the Democrat Party. He's not from the squad. And he's not Bernie's camp either. So just want us to, I just want you to be aware of that.
Specifically, we see the coercion to disconnect people from God playing out in all kinds of propaganda. The gender ideology propaganda, where they're attempting to get people to believe that God made mistakes, which is...
No, I don't think people are equating that at all. You are equating that they believe that God made mistakes. They never said God made a mistake. They never said, oh, God created me, and I feel like I belong to the other gender. No, they've not said that. I don't know where you're coming out with this. But this, it tends to be the Republican playbook of talking, the conservative playbook.
Which is a fascinating way to basically get people to not believe in God, because if you believe in God, you probably believe God doesn't make too many mistakes. Like, hey, look at this junk between my legs. I'm the wrong gender. So they try to teach us, your mind, what you want, you are right, God's wrong, God made a mistake. Dude, you're totally right about you should be a woman. God made a mistake, so, you know, there probably is no God. But when we see all this gender ideology stuff that hinges on that principle that if there probably was a God, he wouldn't be screwing up your gender now, would he? We see that coming at our kids all the time. And amongst other devious intentions behind that kind of idea.
I'm just going to ignore that rant that he just went on. What? He's deluded. He's really deluded. And if you're Christian and this guy is claiming he is, you might want to do something. You might need to start you might need to start doing what I'm doing right here and reacting and saying how this is not Christianity. Like, yeah, I agree. His video was a mistake. Right now, he's really deluded. He's in real big delusion. Like, wow.
All the time. And amongst other devious intentions behind that kind of ideology, I believe one of the principal ones at its core is to disconnect people from their faith in God. So here's what I believe now. I now look at traditional Christian.
Okay, so he's about to go into what he believes in. Now we're going to come across scripture. We're going to come across real deep thinking. Probably not. He'll probably sprinkle in communism somehow. Let's see. 10 minutes in, nothing Christian about his video. And nothing about God, really. What is God? Who is God? He's not described any of that stuff.
Values with a lot of respect and reverence, and I'm integrating those more into my life.
What are they?
I will make no claims that I'm the world's best Christian or most devoted Christian, but I'm looking at these Christian values and they make way more sense to me now than they previously did.
So, okay, let's see what these virtues or whatever he mentioned, whatever word it was, let's see. Christian values, let's see what they are, because let's see what it is.
Christian values around faith in God.
Okay, the value of faith in God doesn't really say anything about you and doesn't put any accountability on you, because you could do the most horrendous crimes and just turn around and say, I have faith in God. That doesn't mean anything. So yeah, that again doesn't want to be accountable for being Christian. You know, what does it mean to have faith in God? What does faith actually look like? Explain that. Let's see.
Christian values around family first, and I now believe that the
family first. Well, I'm sure communists also believe in family first. Family is the one tradition that I don't think anyone is escaping out of. Again, your view of family might be they have to be married in the church and your children have to be baptized. That may be your version of family. But family is even when people live together in the same household. They don't have to marry at all. So, yeah. But family first. Again, what does that actually mean? Family first. If it means family first, then, and if that's a Christian value, then the American way and a lot of these companies, these big corporates, they believe in Christian values. A lot of the people in management believe in Christianity. If that's true, and then family is first, that's what he's saying. I'm just going based on what he's saying. Why are we working 9 to 5 Monday to Friday? Surely, if family is first, we should be spending more time with our family. Why are corporates bringing people back into the office? Isn't that taking us away from our families? It's not very Christian-like, is it? But hey, what do I know?
Power of prayer is the most important thing you and I can do.
The power of prayer is the most beautiful thing that one can do. I'd say it's a beautiful act. I'm not going to actually say that, but again, what is prayer?
I believe prayer is powerful. I believe prayer brings about change. I believe prayer brings God into a place where God is needed, where God has been absent of, where the evil.
My question is, how can God even be absent? If you believe in God and you say God is omnipotent, omnipresent, all this stuff, Christian values, when is God ever absent? Even if there's evil, how can God be absent there? Then God cannot be all powerful if evil will win even slightly.
Change. I believe prayer brings God into a place where God is needed, where God has been absent of, where the evil has starved out the oxygen of God. I think we need more prayer. Now, I don't know for sure Here's how I look at prayer. You just imagine you're in an underwater submarine as opposed to the above water submarines. But nonetheless, you're underwater in a submarine and you've got a limited oxygen supply.
Oh, wait, I was meant to laugh. Oh, yeah, what's he on about? Underwater submarine.
When oxygen starts running out, you're in trouble. And you look around the world today, people are in trouble. They really are. So what can you
Okay, how are people in trouble? You just mentioned communism. That's your answer to everything. How are people actually in trouble? I can tell you where people are in trouble. Bad economic decisions by people in power. And mind you, the people that you've supported were in power in the last government. So in the last 2 years of your 3-year whatever thing you went through, then you have growing social inequities, more social injustice. Women cannot choose whatever they want for their body. There's a reduction in, there's even a fight to get rid of trans rights, which I know you're against. There's more climate denial. So I don't really know what you're talking about. And then not only that, there's just more growing inequality in terms of wage disparity. So again, you're kind of not saying anything.
You need this oxygen. It's your life force. So, okay, we got to bring oxygen from the surface down to us here in this little submarine where we're at. How are we going to do it? Well, if you're in a submarine, some kind of tube system going up to the surface that pumps down oxygen into the submarine where it's needed. That's what you got to do. And I think prayer works in a similar way, where you look at where prayer is needed, God's will is needed. It's absent of God. Whether it's like, hey, the World Economic Forum, or political prisoners from January 6th, or children in public schools, or individual situations you or I might be in. We need God, we need blessings, we need support. How are we gonna get it? So cool, we're in the submarine. I believe prayer becomes the tube that channels the oxygen of God down to us. So it's like, God's there, but we got to bring God into this situation. So I think when we're in a...
If you have to bring God there, that means that God isn't that powerful. God should be able to get rid of evil in a second. Yeah, but you of all people, JP, you bring God down in your little submarine that you have.
Prayerful state of mind. We're opening up a channel to bring God where God is needed. And how the system tends to be set up, the way I believe God set it up, is we have free will, which means God loves us enough to function disconnected from God, if that's our choice, or we can bring God into this situation. So I believe when we pray, we're open.
That makes no sense at all, by the way. Like, logically, does not make any sense. If you're saying God wills for people to be disassociated from him, what's the point of God? He hasn't sold me. He's not sold the idea of God to me. Or that this version of God, shall I say, that he's talking about. And God's will, at the end of the day, if it is free will, then it's not God's will. Like, there's either free will or there's God's will. Like, which one do you want to go for? So
opening up a tube to directly connect from God and bring God into the space over which we're praying. We're bringing oxygen where it's needed. Sounds kind of artsy-fartsy. Obviously, that's not scientifically true.
Obviously, it's not scientifically true, but he doesn't believe in science. By the way, do we know where he's got his stats from before? He didn't talk about any studies. Um, but yeah, but that's one statement I have agreed with. It does sound like all artsy fartsy stuff. In fact, I say it sounds more like make believe.
But maybe it's metaphorically true.
Oh,
But
okay.
nonetheless, I now view prayer as essential. It's what we need. And that's how I think it works. And get this, right now,
Again, maybe you should consult a priest, a Christian priest, on how to pray and what prayer means. I think that would be a good starting point. Sorry that I have to teach you on that, but yeah, that's a good starting point.
I think we're at a time of spiritual warfare. We look at what's going on in the world, conflict between different nations, division all over the place. We want to teach this to your kids. It's like, you seem kind of satanic. Well, that's because I think they are. So I
think he's creating evil in his head. Like, they want to teach this to our kid. Oh, what? They're trying to teach the kids evolution. Oh, no, how dare they? Or critical race theory. Oh, they're just teaching us history.
even though we see these literal things playing out at the physical level, I think what we're seeing is symptoms of what's happening at more of a metaphysical level. I think right now, Satan and God are at war. In a time of spiritual...
He thinks that. He's got no evidence that God and Satan are at war. He just believes it. I just want you to note that down. Again, he just believes it. Probably it's not happening. Probably neither of them care, because they probably have all been created in their own minds.
Warfare, what's on the line is you and I, our souls, our children. One side wants to control us, the other side wants to free us. And I think what we do in our day-to-day lives, our actions, our thoughts, our words...
If you're not happy with people teaching things to others, isn't that control? By you saying that people shouldn't talk about the climate crisis, isn't that control? Just saying.
Is determining which side of the spiritual warfare we're fighting on. Oh, side note, I want to be honest about this. I used to have shame about saying the word God. You know, back when I thought like, dude, I'm spiritual, I'm so cool, but not religious. I used to have shame about using the word God, and instead I'd say, oh, the universe, or the all-knowing. I'd just create different names, but I actually just meant God. So I'm delighted to say now I have not only...
So again, he didn't leave the belief in God. The same juvenile belief that he had in God before, he just named it something different. It still exists now. It hasn't changed in any way.
Only no shame about saying God, but I actually have joy in saying God.
Okay, good. Well, nothing wrong with that. I'm happy if you have joy.
Pretty good. And then before I share a little perspective on what I think you and I can do to bring more God into our lives and the world around us,
but anyway,
I want to do a quick disclaimer, because it's something that tripped me up and gave me a negative view about Christianity and God itself. I would look at all the scandals that have happened in the name of religion. I mean, so many wars have been fought based on religion, based on God. There's been so many corrupt scandals. I mean, so many church scandals where it's all about the money. And then, of course, sexual abuse scandals in the Catholic Church. So I would kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater, like, oh, dude, that dirty bathwater. Yeah, if that's what Christianity is, screw that. If that's what God is.
Again, that's a juvenile response. That just shows your immaturity that that's what you did. But when people like myself or anyone else, they discredit this dualistic God or version or explanation of God, it's more to do with an actual analysis into the philosophy. So it's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater at all. It's actually more well thought out and more well explained. So maybe you haven't done enough reading. which probably I shouldn't expect you to do. But 15 minutes in, he hasn't said anything spiritual or religious at all.
Screw that. Now I have a much more mature look where I do believe
it's
evil
not.
goes wherever it can. The devil masquerades as an angel of disguise. So if the devil wants to
Yeah, that's mature. That's mature. If that's mature, literally, God save us.
control people, then a good way for the devil to do that is to find people where they're trying to find God. So I think we certainly need good discernment. And just because something claims to be,
He lacks that good discernment, and if what you're saying is that that evil infiltrates into the places where God is, you better be careful on your channel, because I know where evil is going to go, to your channel.
be of God, or a church or a person claims to be of God, I think we need discernment because the devil masquerades as an angel of light. But now, what I think is a more mature view, I will discern evil from churches, discern evil from God. So I don't have to throw the God baby out with the bathwater, but rather just throw the bathwater out and keep the God, which seems to be much more empowering.
Which doesn't make any sense. The analogy just doesn't make any sense.
So here are 4 things that I think you and I
4
can do
things.
to bring more God into
Okay.
the world. One is to very intentionally have faith in God. It's hard to allow yourself to be supported by God if you don't believe in God, if you don't actively think about it. But having faith that there is a God, God has our backs, God has a plan, and our job is to be of best service to that plan as possible.
So basically, a blind faith is what he's saying. But again, that I don't know what he said. He says to have faith in God's plan. Doesn't he have a problem with plans? Didn't he claim that a certain public health crisis was the plan? But he wants to believe in God's plan. Makes absolute logical sense.
So having faith, and then listen. It's one thing to have faith, then it's another thing to listen to God. Because I don't know about you, I've got noise in my mind all the time.
Damn. Okay. My man's psychoanalyzing himself.
I've got my own thoughts, I've got my own ego. Then of course there's all the outside noise coming in. So to be guided by God, I think we need to become very good listeners. What is God's path for me? What's God's encouragement for me? What step am I being guided to take right now in this difficult situation? We've got to learn to listen. And I think listening to God, it's a little bit less to do with our eardrums and much more to do with hearing God from our heart. And at least for me, how the conversation tends to show up is subtle feelings in my heart. When I'm thinking about doing something, oftentimes for me, it's as simple as a sensation of lightness in my heart when it's in my greater good. Or it might be a choice where like, dude, that makes logical sense for me to do, but my heart will have a sense of heaviness to it. It's very subtle and it's very easy for it to be there, but for me not to notice. That's why I find it essential to calm my mind and listen to the sensations of my heart, because I do believe that's how God communicates with us.
No evidence that that's the way God communicates with us. And you said listen. That's feeling, not listening. So just say feeling would be a better point to make. Sorry, I'm giving you ideas. But if you use that, you know where you got it from. But yeah, I don't know.
I think if we're trying to listen to God and the English language and literal words, we're probably going to be waiting a while. Now, if that's how God talks to you, great. Doesn't seem to be how God talks to me or most people. So we got to listen to our heart, because what we're really listening to is who's on the other side of our heart, which I believe is God.
You listen to your instinct is all you're doing, or intuition. One of the two. That's all. You're not listening to some God.
And thirdly, about what you and I can do is pray. Pray often. Know when people are in need. Maybe you don't even know them, but pray for them.
Okay,
Pray for yourself. Pray
that's
for
nice.
your family, your circumstances. Pray for other people. Pray for the world at large. And by the way, this might sound weird, but when we look at the evil authoritarians, people I judge to be evil at least, the Klaus Schwabs, the George Soroses, Bill Gates, Biden, Trudeau. It's not that I'm keeping track of who they are, but that's who I think they are.
What
would happen if we start praying for them? Certainly not praying for their agenda to succeed, but praying for them as the individuals. Because I look at them and what I see is godless people who are driven by their own ego. And I think evil is controlling their ego.
Didn't he just say he had an ego? And isn't that like, well, yeah. Anyway, this is when you see real spiritual. This is religious arrogance, but you think you have to pray to people because you think they're godless. Like, how arrogant is that, and how egoic and ridiculous. And that's what turns people away from being religious. Is this mentality?
So these are maybe people we need to pray for more than anybody else.
Just pray for yourself.
To have them saved. And by the way, the more
they probably don't want to be saved. Let them be. You save yourself first. Only if you save yourself can you save others.
Save, the more they get God into their lives, which I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But hypothetically, if they got more.
Well, if God is really powerful, he will make that happen. But obviously, you don't really believe in that. So you need to have more faith. The first point.
More God into their lives, we save them. Kind of saves us too, doesn't it? And fourthly, about what I think you and I can do is doing our best to live a life of service.
Okay.
A service to God's plan, a service to God's guidance for us. And then we also have to realize, to do so, to live a life of service, we have to look at our own egotistical wants, our egotistical desires. They even might be authentic desires, but sometimes we have to be willing to obey.
See, he has to save himself. That's why he says, authentic. I see what you're doing, JP. I see what you're doing.
Abandon those in order to be of service to God. Now, here's a fact. A lot of people would say, dude, you mean not just dedicating my life to, me and serving myself, which is kind of narcissism, but how would I ever be happy if I don't do that? Well, I would say, how would you ever be happy if that's all you do? I believe true happiness, fulfillment, and meaning of life absolutely requires us to be of service to a greater good, to contribute to the greater good of other people. I think that is absolutely what's required for us to be happy and fulfilled individuals. Now, not to be confused with the dopamine hits that happen when we gratify ourselves, when we make ourselves feel more significant and certain and in control by just kind of going after our egotistical wants, needs, and desires. We love those dopamine hits. They feel good. They're instant gratification. But that's not happiness. A life of service is what births true happiness. And I think to be...
It hasn't really expressed what service means in that little rant.
Of best service to a will greater than ours, we need to
a will greater than ours, yet you have a problem with the way governments run. If you truly believe that everything is a will of God's, then everything is perfect right now. So I don't think you really believe there's free will, but you're confused, and I can really tell. I'm losing my patience with this. I need to bring back my patience.
To think about three things: our thoughts, words, and actions, and what are they aligned with? If we allow our thoughts, words, and actions to be as impeccably aligned as possible with God's guidance, then I think we're doing really well. That means we're someone, we listen, we have faith.
Mind you, he's talked all about being Christian, God. He's not mentioned Jesus once, I think. Neither has he mentioned the Bible. But he's got 3 minutes to mention those things. But how do you know what God's guidance is? You might as well believe in crystals, mate.
We listen, we pray, but we also move our feet. We take action. We take action with our words, our thoughts, and of
Okay.
course, then our outward actions. That makes us a three-dimensional being
Oh.
doing our best to act out
Yeah, I'm glad you're not a two-dimensional being, because that would be quite scary.
God's will, being of service. I don't know about you, but I think the world needs a lot more of that. But that's
I think the world needs a lot more fairness and equity, but obviously I don't think you really believe in that because you're scared that that might mean communism.
something within our control. We'll never be perfect at, but it's
Yeah.
within our control to do our best to be better at. A little better each day. So that's a little rundown on what I used to believe about God, what I believe now, what changed my mind, and what I think you and I can do to bring more God into our lives.
Do not be shocked if he has his own ministry in the future. I think that's what he's setting himself up for. He'll be the next Joel Osteen or Kenneth Copeland and all those phony crooks.
Now, just a quick PS on this. One of the reasons why I like sharing
Go
thoughts on what I changed my mind about out loud is I think we live in a world where we're discouraged from changing our mind. But
No,
it's like frowned upon to change your mind.
it's actually not frowned upon to change your mind. I think it's actually pretty good. So I don't know where you're coming up with this. I think what you're scared of is accountability, and that's what you don't want to talk about. But yes, I think people are genuinely okay with changing your mind. When you know something is better, you end up saying, actually, this was a better way. I was wrong before. Don't think anyone has a problem with that. It's when you say, when you don't take accountability for what you did in the past, as you mentioned, your actions. So people, it's not about changing your philosophical ideas people have a problem with. It's when you have no accountability for the things you said in the past that led to certain things being done and you not connecting both of the dots. That's what people have issues with. I will answer your question, Vikram G, in a minute.
Well, what if we learn to frown upon never changing our mind and give ourselves impeccable permission to change our minds? Because if you never change your mind, guess what? You're not growing, you're not learning, you are what's called staying stuck in the same beliefs and practices that you adopted a long time ago, and they might be well expired, kind of like meat in your refrigerator you bought 7 years ago. Yeah, you bought it 7 years ago, but it might be rotten. It might be time to throw it out and replace it.
Might be. It is time. It's been there for 7 years. And why are you not been cleaning out your fridge? Oh, probably God didn't tell you. You probably didn't listen to your prayers. God. I mean, you need to have faith that that meat could have lasted longer.
It with something new. So personally, I'm someone who encourages people to change their mind. I think I just like to model that for you. Not that I'm picture perfect model for it, but I'm clumsy,
you're not a
stumbling
great
my way
model.
along.
No.
And I think it's great to change our mind when we have a good reason to change our mind. When we look at something we used to believe, my old beliefs about God, and then a better way comes along.
No, you never changed your beliefs in God. I'm not convinced from this spiel that you gave. What you said in 25 minutes could have been said in 5. It was a waste of time.
We let the old one go and embrace the new. And with that, with the 4 tips I shared about having faith,
Bad tips.
listening, praying, and living a life of service,
Bad
if
tip.
there's anything in there that you can get
They're not bad tips, just badly explained.
benefit from, awesome. Please take it. I appreciate you, my beautiful freedom-loving friend. Thank you for watching this video with me, and I'll see you soon.
Isn't it interesting? He ends with a meditation bell. That has nothing to do with Christianity. Just these little tiny things. But let's see what God has to say.
Thank you for watching, my friend. Just one more thing. I wanted to let you know about the newest design in my merch line, my favorite design, and it's also become the best-selling design. It's the Got God shirt.
Oh, here we
If
go.
you'd like to get your faith-loving hands on one, you can just go to AwakenwithJP.com or hit the link in the description of this video to grab one for yourself.
Well, don't buy it. Don't support such people. Anyway, let's that was Awaken with JP. To be honest, watching that doesn't make me think anyone would change their mind in believing in God, and maybe he wasn't planning to do so. So, but yeah, even the tips that he shared, the way he explained it, there's a lot of faults with that. So, yeah, not a great video in my opinion. But yes, let me answer your questions, Vikramji. So, was Lord Krishna was an incarnation or an enlightened person? I would. Okay, so there's 2 answers to this. So one, he was an enlightened person. That's for sure. That's something I can completely go with, completely agree with. He was an enlightened person. And then within the existence of this world, he was, metaphorically speaking, or even historically, one could say that he was an incarnation of Vishnu, according to the Puranas. Now, again, it doesn't matter what you view him as. It's about his message that is more important, and whether you capture more of his message and live that message and you put it into your life, that's more important. So, but yeah, I would definitely say he was an enlightened person, for sure. The incarnation thing is just based on belief. If you believe that, that's good. But again, there are people who believe he's an incarnation, but they don't practice what he teaches. And there's people that say he's not an incarnation, who's just an enlightened being, but they do practice what he talked about in the Bhagavad Gita. So at the end of the day, just look at the message and follow that. Why moon is called star in Bhagavad Gita, although it doesn't have its own light? I don't know which verse is that. Can you tell me what verse that is? Because I will have to check that out. But yeah, you have to give me evidence for that. So far I've not come across any verse like that, so it might be the ones that I haven't done yet. So in terms of what I've spoken about on the podcast, but yeah, I don't know if you said why moon is called a star. Yeah, I don't know what you mean by that. And yeah, you'll have to give me the verse number. I am moon among stars. Well, he could just be saying that I'm the moon among the stars. And there's several moons. There's not just one, right? There's many moons that's orbiting planets. And yeah, that's not saying that he's calling a moon a star. But again, I don't know what verse number that is to specifically look at what that means. Anyone else? You can have. Do you have any more questions? If not, I'll end this live session. But thank you very much for joining. And if you are able to, please do check out this QR code and subscribe to my Patreon. It supports the podcast running, and it helps me move more closer to doing this full time. So if you are able to, I know we're in a cost of living crisis and everything, so if you're able to, please do subscribe. If not, no worries. I'll keep that up there for a bit. Just a random thought. No worries. Yeah. I Unless I'm given the verse, I can't really answer. But yeah, anyway, thank you very much everyone for listening. Do look forward to my podcast episodes that are uploaded and released every Sunday. Do follow me on Patreon if you want extra content, and specifically I'm doing a series on my thoughts on the Upanishads. So if you want access to that bonus episodes and series, do subscribe to Patreon. And if you subscribe, you do also get some merchandise too. If you do $25 and up. And yes, other than that, just keep on educating yourself, keep on being spiritually inclined. And also, I do a meditation session every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's open to everyone, it's free for all. And yeah, all the details are probably in the show notes below. But take care, everyone. Have a great evening. Stay safe. Bye. And I'll have a look at who you mentioned, Vikramji. Thank you.